Welcome to today's Lightcast and Data City webinar. Today we're going to be looking at the Complete Growth Toolkit for local authorities. We're going to be bringing in Alex Craven, the founder and CEO of the Data City. We also have a special guest speaker with Joe Ahern from WPI Economics, who'll be talking about how they have used Lightcast and Data City insights and data combined. So without further ado, a couple of housekeeping questions. You can raise questions in the GoToWebinar control panel. There is a section within today's webinar where we'll be coming back to questions. We also have a poll, so get ready to respond to that as and when it goes right, technology allowing. And that's it really. Like I said, do raise questions as and when you feel like it, and we'll come to those when we get to them. So quickly, the obligatory introduction to Lightcast. We are a labour market data company with headquarters in the USA, along with offices in the UK, Europe, India, Australia, and other global locations. Our mission is to help our customers unlock new possibilities within the labour market. We've been around for many years. We're a trusted labour market data provider. We work with community organisations, public sector, corporations, and learning providers in the education space, and we're essentially helping them to understand the increasingly complex world of work. And we do that through providing robust, trustworthy data, and I'll talk a little bit more about that as we go through the presentation. So we are here to help you. We do that through providing three main types of labour market information. Structural labour market information comes from official government sources, and we model that into a proprietary data set, really to help our customers understand industries and occupations and their presence within their local area. We then have two forms of big data, which come in the form of job postings, which is derived from online job adverts, which we then deduplicate and help our customers to understand recruitment trends at a local level. And then we also have a ongoing and building a library of professional profiles, which are derived from people's online profiles where they're looking for work. We provide that through software, primarily through our Analyse tool and our career coach tool. And then we also provide access to our data via APIs and Snowflake, which is more for complex research analysis work. And then we also provide applied research, so more in the consulting end. And that's usually very much focused, again, as you'd imagine, on the specifics of the labour market in a particular area. Right, first test of the technology. I'm going to hopefully be able to launch a poll. And the question is, do you feel that your organisation has access to the data and insight required to define and deliver your local economic strategy? Now, it may be that you have a responsibility in regards to your local economic strategy. It may be that you don't, which may well infer your response to this quick poll. So I'm going to leave it for a little bit. I can still see that there's many coming back. We will talk a little bit more about the local economic strategies, which are something that seems to have a real focus as we come into this post or this new LEP landscape. Right. We are still having voters come in. I'm going to urge you all to vote quickly. Okay, so if I close the poll and share the results. There you can see. So we've got 41% saying yes, 32% no, and 26% not sure. Now I'm assuming the not sure may well be depending on how close you are to the local economic strategy and that particular piece of work. But thanks to everyone that has responded to that. We'll come back to the local economic strategy shortly. Just quick introduction to Lightcast, and I think specifically I wanted to talk about our data in regards to how it can be used and is used by our customers. As I mentioned previously, we've got two different distinct types of data that we use. We have structured data, comes from official government sources, and we'll be talking about the strengths and potentially or I'd imagine the weaknesses of that when we come into the Data City part of this webinar. Essentially, structured data is really useful for getting to an accurate view of job volumes, understanding how many people are employed by industry or occupation, and then being able to build out trends and projections based on that data. And that's how we use it at Lightcast. Primarily, this data comes from ONS, but we do also use other sources as well, and we model that data to remove missing cases. Big data, primarily in terms of job postings. Essentially, it's really large scale, and it's a methodology that we as Lightcast own from beginning to end, and it's very useful, as I mentioned before, for understanding recruitment trends and understanding employment activity and getting as close to a real-time view as you can of the labour market. Our focus is to play to the strengths of structured data and limit the weaknesses of the big data. The challenge with the big data is, although it is real-time, it is also quite noisy, and we have to minimise that noise and ensure our customers can get good value from the job postings inside primarily. Just talking about job posting analytics, because it links completely to the work that we do in partnership with Data City, I thought it'd be worthwhile spending a little bit of time talking about job postings. As I mentioned previously, it's as near to real time as we can get. We scrape job postings every day. And within a day or two, we can use that intelligence that they produce, and we have monthly updates within our software products. It's a very rich data source, grows every day. I think we're over 100 million job adverts now over the last 10 years, compared to 320,000 labour force survey responses each year. So you can see that it is very rich, and it does give us a really good view of scale across the UK and also globally. So yeah, job postings can be paired both locally, regionally, and also within key global markets. It's enriched and built upon through taxonomies that we at Lightcast have built. You may well have heard me talking about these in previous webinars, but we've built a skills taxonomy. We also have the Lightcast occupations taxonomy, or LOT. And this is very much a direction of travel. We're going to be enriching our job postings by building out and bringing other data sets alongside. And I think that's really where it gets interesting in terms of our partnership with the Data City, is that we can put job postings alongside data sets that are curated by other organisations. And then the combination of the two can be really valuable to our customers. Little bit of a sneak peek. There's a webinar tomorrow. I'll mention this at the end of today's webinar, focused on the Lightcast Digital Skills Outlook for 2024. This essentially looks and reports on the top 5 cities in UK and 14 other countries, including Ireland. As Data City are based in Leeds, and we may well be looking at other data relating to Leeds, I thought it'd be just useful to just show what the report is telling us. Leeds is one of the top ranked digital skills hubs within the UK. And then what we're looking at is we're looking at the digital skills here and the frequency with which those turn up within job postings. You can request your own report and you can select the city that you would like to focus in on. Overall, Leeds was ranked number 2 within the UK for 2024 for the presence of digital skills within job postings and within the labour market. That represents a rise from placing number 3 when we last did this exercise in 2022. And then what we've looked at is we've looked at digital occupations, so job postings with digital occupations, and job postings that show digital skills. They both show the presence of digital skills for other occupations as well. So you can do a side-by-side comparison there. You can see the web developer comes through at this top for digital occupations, and then you've got validation engineer, and then the fastest growing skills. So these are the skills that have grown since 2020. Skills being specified within job adverts, within our job postings, and encryption there is coming through really clearly as being the leading skill when we digital skill when we look at leads at a particular geography. Thought that would be useful because it's all very well talking about job postings, but immediately you can see through the use of skills and through the way in which we can track job postings changes over time, you can start to really get into understanding how things are changing within a local area. And as I said, that real-time view can be really useful because it's dynamic. I wanted to introduce the Lightcast and Data City partnership. It's pretty well established. We've been working together for a good few years now. We've formalized arrangements, and Alex, once I bring him in, will talk about how that looks in terms of their product. But essentially what we're doing is we're opening up Lightcast job postings data focused in on the Data City tool and the product that they have. I would bring Alex in to introduce Data City at this point. Alex, have you got your mic to hand?
Yeah, hopefully you can hear me well.
Yep,
good morning, everybody. The Data City is focused specifically on addressing the issue with SIC codes and tracking emerging economy sectors. But what we have is a company database of all UK businesses, and we try and match those businesses to their websites, and then data from other providers like Lightcast, but also data from Deal Room, Innovate UK, and so on. And then that data is used extensively across national and local government, banking, and finance to identify emerging trends in the economy, and also quite sort of absolute counts of sectoral strengths and shifts in that data in those positions as we go forward. So today we're going to be showing how the Lightcast integration allows us to join the specific job postings of individual companies to their data in our platform, and then how from there you can aggregate that up into sectoral views and then define that against your geography. Yeah, quite excited to show that today.
Thanks, Alex. Thanks for the intro to Data City. I've talked a bit about Lightcast already. Essentially, in a nutshell, we're the world's leading authority on job skills, workforce talent, and labour market dynamics. I wanted to move on to talk about the post-local enterprise partnership landscape, because I think that's really interesting, and it's something that we have been discussing with our partners, the Data City, in terms of how our joined up proposition or solution could be presented to organisations within that are looking at how they respond to this new policy landscape. So published in December last year by the Department for Levelling Up Housing and Communities, essentially guidance was provided for local authorities about delivering business representation and local economic planning functions. because from April 2024, government will basically be supporting local authorities to deliver the core functions that have been historically delivered by local enterprise partnerships, many of whom we've worked with and continue to work with at Lightcast. And there's a transition phase where many of those organisations will essentially be continue to exist, but be the responsibility for the delivery of them will go to upper tier local authorities where they're not already delivered by a combined authority, or in areas where a devolution deal is not yet agreed. So devolution is in the mix here, and essentially the focus will be, and the requirement will be, based on the guidance that we've seen to date, for each of those areas to continue to have an employer or business representation with local stakeholders, including local authorities and other economic development organisations. But the focus will be very much on them owning a local plan, which will analyse local investment opportunities to support growth, a comprehensive view of jobs and skills in an area, and managing those relationships with skills providers in an area, and shining a spotlight on inclusivity within the area. So very much continues to be linked to the Levelling Up white paper. One of the key bits of focuses of the guidance has been on the delivering business representation and local economic planning functions. And they're looking for local economic strategies to include the analysis of the competitive or comparative advantages and strengths in an area, often I'd imagine compared to the UK picture. What makes that area different? What inherent strengths are there? And how do those link into strategic opportunities across the broader geography? They're also a focus on opportunities for growth over the next 10 years and looking at a vision of what would happen if these opportunities were successfully grasped over that period. As you can see, that would link very clearly with the devolution, focus on devolution, and then also identifying top public and private sector investment priorities. So those first 2 points there, I think, are very much somewhere in the space whereby the combined Data City and Lightcast offer can offer some real assistance. And I think this is a good point to bring Alex back in to talk about the Data City offer and how that relates to that kind of new policy landscape. Alex.
All right, on mute, classic.
That's all right.
Well, so the Data City mission is to build the world's first industry engine, which is essentially combining the search functionality of Google with what you might be used to in sort of traditional business databases. So we just jump to the next slide. Well, there's a specific problem that we started solving, which is the limitations of the SRC code and as we go international, the NACE code system. So those of you who've seen me present will have probably heard these statistics before, but 15% of all active UK companies are now in the SIC code 82990, other business support services not elsewhere classified, which is a sort of bucket for businesses saying there isn't a classification here that reflects what I believe my company does, so I'll take other. But all of the SRC code sections have another option within them. So when you actually aggregate those, you've got 33% of businesses which are choosing other. There's actually a study which University of Essex have done where they've been reviewing the SRC codes that businesses have selected and then checking what they actually do. their conclusion was that 44% of businesses are actually, even if they've selected an SIC code, it's an incorrect one, or it's not a useful classification. And that's something that we hear from particularly our banking clients, where insurers and banks manually check the SIC code of every business that are applying for a bank account or insurance policy, because the one provided via their company's house record is so frequently incorrect. So they do a lot of time doing what's called a best fit SIC swap out. It takes a lot of time and effort in the banking sector to meet their regulatory obligations. Obviously, part of the problem we've got here is that the SIC code system was last updated in 2007. It's a United Nations owned or coordinated initiative. There is an update planned, but it looks like it's only going to be at the 3-digit level. And consequently, there are no classifications for the new economy or emerging economy strengths, and it is by design never going to be able to evolve as quickly as the economy does, particularly as the rate of pace of change in the economy increases. So we're not trying to replace it, but what we are trying to do is provide you with a toolkit which allows you to work alongside the SIC code system. So all of our data works with SIC, but we also provide you with alternative classifications that reflect new and emerging economy sectors. And I'll leave you with one little little fact. The current fastest growing SIC code is growing of rice in the UK. You can't actually grow rice in the UK, but this is number 2 on the drop down. So there is a sort of human behavioural aspect there where people are just ticking any old thing. Next slide, please, Will. So the Data City as a business, what we're trying to do is provide you with the best industry data, and that's from a firm level up rather than a top-down point of view. So all of our data starts with companies at its most granular level, and ideally at sort of postcode level geography across all registered and trading addresses, and then we aggregate up from there. Our core product is the industry engine, which is a search and classification engine of over 100 million companies in 12 territories now. We have a proprietary industrial classification system, which we call ARTICS, which stands for Real-Time Industrial Classifications. And what we do here is we use the website text of companies to understand what they do, and we build machine learning classifiers to build classifications for sectors. So some of you may have seen, we recently worked with DCIT on mapping the engineering biology sector, which is a big piece of policy initiative and funding attraction and a strength for the UK. And we do that in the UK and now increasingly internationally. So we are building out our ARTICS across our global data sets so that you can compare UK strengths to overseas strengths, and hopefully things like compare not just compare Leeds to Manchester, which we often get asked to do, but perhaps Leeds to a city which is more similar to it, or Manchester to Barcelona, and so on as we move forward. And then we also obviously have a consulting division where we provide services around our data to help you get the best out of it and support consulting partners. Okay, yep, next slide, please, Will. We work with most sort of economic policy teams in government, so I've just listed a few here, but our largest clients are DCIT, DLUC, DBT, but we have worked for Home Office, Treasury, and various others. I haven't listed any, by all means all of them, but we have a lot of corporate finance, venture capital, private equity, and increasingly sort of high street banking customers using our data for their own business development and lending. So we're helping Lloyds deploy a £1 billion debt fund to support women-led ESG focused businesses in the regions. We work with a significant proportion of LEPs / combined authorities / mayoral authorities and organisations like Tech UK, Innovate UK, a lot of the catapults and so on. We've just recently with DCIT launched the DCIT clusters tool, so there's a little screenshot there. So that's quite a high profile piece of work where we've taken a data science driven view of the UK's science, technology and innovation clusters, working with Cambridge Econometrics and the Innovation Caucus. That tool is available from the DCIT website. You can have a look at that. There's over 3,000 clusters identified across the UK using both a SIT code view and our Arctic classifications view, and hopefully that's an important part of the UK's inward investment in infrastructure moving forward. We're collating requests for phase 2 and further updates. And then just this week, the CBI and a charity called the ECIU, Energy Climate Intelligence Unit, have just released a report on the net zero sector showing the value of the sector, the 9% growth of the sector, and the high volume and value of high quality green jobs across the UK as a key economic opportunity for the UK. Okay. We get asked a lot where we sort of fit, so I had a go at doing this. So I've put this into sort of 4 main sections, and then there's the central section where I think we really shine. So you've got a lot of data providers provide company database, so there are 5.4 million active UK companies, which you can get from Companies House, and then you can have a look at, go to the next slide. Well, it might help sort of show where we are. So the Data City takes Companies House data, but we also take the whole of the UK business-based data file from CreditSafe. Like I said, there's 5.4 million active UK companies at the moment, but I think most of you will know there's only about 2.5 million what we call real sort of economically active companies, which are companies that raise invoices, employ people. There's a lot of special purpose vehicles in the UK, so that 5.4 million figure is a bit misleading. We're also introducing births and deaths, so that number will increase, so that you can also access data on new company formations and companies that are no longer trading. We work with Dun & Bradstreet and Fame Orbis data, but we provide the classifications over the top of those rather than an integration, whereas CreditSafe's data is actually available through our platform. Many of you will probably be familiar with platforms like Bowhurst, Dealroom and PitchBook. So they don't really do what we do. They are what I would call sort of small data research platforms. So they focus on a very small number of companies, but they add a lot of depth to them. So they track in the UK about 50,000 companies, obviously a lot smaller data to handle than 5.4 million. And we partner with Dealroom of the 3 because they're the only one that would actually integrate with our platform, but also because they are global, and I think from sort of company values and data approach, we share a lot in common with them. So you can access M&A and VCPE and some debt finance data in the platform, and again that's a company level join, so we joined data at a company level from their platform to our platform. And we also have some bundles as well for local authorities where you can get a full license to both our platform and theirs as a combined deal. We also take the Innovate UK open data and apply that at a company level, so you can see the grant history of companies. We also use 360 Giving. Obviously in the labour market, we don't really go near ONS data. We let Lightcast handle that. Sorry, Will, back one. And we've partnered with Lightcast so that you can get an idea of the jobs and skills, which I'll show you shortly. On the right-hand side, you've got finding companies based on their website. Really, the only alternative is Google, but obviously it's not very useful in terms of the format of the data. You can use our platform using keywords in it to search the website text of 1.6 million UK companies. And then we use SIC codes, NACE codes, and we have our own classification system. And then in the middle, we provide you with company counts, your industry mix, both traditional code classifications and our Arctics. We've got clusters data coming into the platform, or you can access it off platform now via the work we've been doing with DCIT. We have a proprietary innovation score, which is an analysis of website text-based method. Investment data, we track the compound annual growth rate, so the CAGR of individual companies, which means we can apply that to sectors. We've done a lot of work around inclusive growth, around the gender dynamics of directors of businesses. So we have definitions of women-founded, women-led, men-founded, men-led, employment, jobs and skills requirements. Okay, next slide please, Will. So just sort of going back to the toolkit concept, what we're trying to do is provide a database of every UK company which you can view in your geography. We have SIC and Arctic classifications. We have a location quotient view. We have actually got a proprietary turnover estimate for 2.4 million companies, which I think is the most comprehensive of any platform, which is a pretty good guide to the turnover of companies who haven't declared that at Companies House under 10 million. It is an estimate, it's not official statistics or declared, but it's an algorithmic view that uses headcount to estimate by comparing companies who do the same thing where we do no turnover. We've got the ability in the tool, which I'll show you in a second, to compare your geography to national or other regions, and your clusters data. We have investment and grant data and the jobs and skills stuff, which I'll show you now. Right, we're going to try and battle with the technology. You're on mute, Will. I can't hear you, Will. Okay.
Yeah, to get to this point has taken some work. Apologies for disruption to the slide deck as you were going through. I was trying to get it so I can switch the presentation view. It's looking, bear with me a second. Right, you should almost, bear with me a second. Yeah, it's not. This isn't going to be easy, Alex. Bear with me one sec. It should be. There, you're in charge. Perfect. You can see it. Seamless, almost.
Right. Okay. So you should be able to see my. Yeah. I can't see. Oh, I can. Here we go. So this is the Data City platform. I won't take you through all of it, but we've got over 400 emerging economy classifications across mainly digital tech, life sciences, net zero, climate tech, ESG sectors. Most of that work's been done in conjunction with DCIT, academia, catapults, Innovate UK, DCMS. We have all SIC Eco sections. We have a range of pre-defined geographies. So we've got cities, which is an OECD boundary. We've got local authorities. We've got ITL 1 and 2, constituencies, LEPs, which obviously we will replace shortly. And then through CreditSafe, we actually have data all the way through to ownership structures of overseas entities. So you can get an FDI view of your business base and understand how involved overseas entities are in your local businesses. You can search our platform like Google by using keywords, range of financial filters, turnover, amount of funding raised, amount of grant funding raised. You can look at the gender dynamics as a filter, so you can isolate your women-led or women-founded businesses if you want to see how well you're doing on your sort of EDI objectives. And we have a range of growth filters, so foundation dates, innovation score, banding of companies by their business size, and we have growth rate based on a compound annual growth rate estimation. We've worked with Scale Up Institute to provide a scale-up OECD scale-up definition, which is a average 20% year-on-year for 3 years. And we also have university spin-out flag in the data. I'm just going to jump into Rolls-Royce and show the integration with Lightcast. So each company in our platform has a range of data points which combines data from their website, Companies House and CreditSafe, and data providers like Dealroom, Innovate UK, and Lightcast. So you've got stuff like group structure, CO2 intensity estimation, declared financials, growth rates. We've got maths estimating the growth trend of Rolls-Royce here. It's not looking too healthy. directors and ownership structure, traditional and Arctic sector classifications, their geographies, so we have the postcodes of all the trading locations, and here we have the Lightcast data. So what we've been able to do here is join in a time series the number of adverts that we were able to say in the Lightcast. So it's a subset of Lightcast's overarching data where we are confidently able to say this advert belongs to Rolls-Royce. We can join it to this company, and we can do that over time. So we can see the trend of the jobs advertised by Rolls-Royce, and we can also see data on the actual jobs that they've been advertising. So this is quite an early version of the data. The guys have been working very hard using the Snowflake data set that Lightcast have made available to us. So we're very much looking to use this in anger, hopefully in the context of the regional economic strategies, and we're very keen to hear sort of requests from customers and what they would like to see from this and where we can take it next. So you've got here your SOC 4 codes, job postings by lot. You've got your skills. Yeah, so and then what we're looking to do is aggregate that data up into sectoral views. So when you're looking at a sector in your geography, you can then get that sort of level of data in a time series over that sector or over your business base. So you can see the sort of trends, and you might want to say, right, well, you know, we want to focus on climate tech in our geography. What are the jobs and skills requirements of the existing climate tech sector in our geography? And we'll be able to show you that data in a similar view to this. The other thing we've introduced is we've started scraping ESG statements. So you can start to look at the commitment levels of your business base to the ESG agenda. All we're doing at the moment is short descriptions and URL linking, but we're again looking at working on extracting meaning from these ESG statements to see what these companies are saying. You can look at Arctics in a summary view. So these are the national Arctic performances, and here you can get an idea of the sort of macroeconomic performance of these sectors. So the growth rates, the absolute sizes, and I think this is quite useful. So when you're looking at your regional economic strategy, if you're looking to say, you know, like Will highlighted cybersecurity skills, if you think you have a strength in that sector, or our data shows you have a strength in that sector, you can then set that against the national trend. You know, is this a sector you should be leaning into? Is it growing? Do you want to support your fledgling sector? You might have quite a nascent sector to back that horse, if you like, or equally give you some context to how strong your sector is doing. So you might be growing not as quickly as the national average. In which case you might be able to say what you want to do about that, if anything. You know, it may be very much a support service to your regional base rather than a national strength, in which case you might move on to a different sector or something that you really want to support. Here I've just jumped down to, so we have, I've selected the geography of Leeds, and we have a sort of summary statistics section, so you can look at the business base of Leeds. So this is every company registered and trading in Leeds, because we don't just have registered addresses at the moment. The total number of people that they employ, not all those employees will be in Leeds, and so on. So we've got a lot of data here, total amount of investment funding, the breakdown of the gender dynamics of those businesses and the compound annual growth rate of those businesses. You can have a look at where they are also located. So the businesses with trading addresses in Leeds also have trading addresses in what are the geographies. You can have a look at over-indexing key phrases. So it's quite interesting, climate modelling, food resilience. You've got the gender dynamics, the company banding by employee size and the overall employment trends. You can look at company growth rates as well, how many companies are growing and shrinking in the geography. And again, this is quite unique to us because we've done the compound annual growth rate for 2.4 million companies, which is, to my knowledge, the most of any platform. No one's actually had a go at this apart from us. This, I think, is potentially a very useful data set for you. And then you can actually look at this by sector, by SITCO, by sector. and compare to other geographies. You can get, currently this is just the total aggregate summary of the jobs of the businesses. So the next versions are looking to introduce the trend data that I showed you at the company level into this view. And that's something we're working on at the moment. And then here you can have a look at your emerging economy strengths, and you can either look at that in absolute terms, or here I've clicked location quotient. So you can get an idea of this, where your rankings are versus national averages. And then you've got the summarized financial performance of your business base, and also summarized equity funding, so inward investment, how much investment are your businesses running. But you could apply geography, industrial filters and all sorts of other stuff to this. We also have a tool called Compare. So here what I've done is I've selected, for my sins, I shouldn't do this, but I've selected Leeds and Manchester. And what you can do is the side-by-side comparison of these statistics of the two geographies. So I could leave Manchester off, in which case I get a Leeds versus the national average, which might be more useful. But if you want to compare your geography to another geography, and obviously I've picked the local authority of Leeds versus the local authority of Manchester, which has all sorts of questions asked of it, whether it should be a different definition of Manchester and so on. But this allows you to take any of those and compare your location quotient view of your sectors versus others. So, this is quite interesting. Leeds has slightly fewer companies, but here more employees in the legal services sector, according to our data. More fintechs and so on. So, what you see, that's versus the national average. So this is Leeds versus national averages, including the jobs and skills data from Lightcast. And that's it from me, I think.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, no, great to see how it's integrated within the platform. I've had some questions come through, which we'll come back to. I'm now going to hopefully be able to bear with me one sec. Bear with me, Joe. Nice to see you. Almost there. Okay, seamless again. So I'd like to welcome Joe Ahern, who's the head of policy consulting at WPI Economics. We've had the good fortune to work with Joe and the team, as have the Data City. So we thought this might be a really good opportunity to show how the two data sets can be brought together. In this instance, outside of a software platform, but more in terms of a particular piece of work that needs to be done in Surrey and Hampshire. Joe, have you got your microphone?
Yeah, all good. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, fine. Okay, you can hear the relief in my voice. I'm going to move on to the next slide, and you take it away.
Great, thanks very much, Will. Hello, everyone. So for those who don't know us, we're WPI Economics. We're a specialist economics and public policy consultancy. We specialise in bringing together a range of different types of data, evidence, analysis to improve public policy. So that can be in terms of directly advising government, including local government, on their own policy and their own economic strategy, but also involves and includes supporting the private sector and supporting the third sector to influence government and to influence and change policy. We do work on a whole range of different areas. I think particularly relevant for this is clearly we do work, we've worked with Lightcast the Data City previously on looking to define and quantify the green economy and looking at the green economy and green jobs in different local areas. We're also doing an increasing amount on skills. So we are supporting Business London on the local skills improvement plan in London and the progress report. I'm sure many of the organisations on this call and the people on this webinar are also thinking about the progress reports for the LEPs this year. So yeah, just a few snapshot of what we do. This particular piece of work was for Surrey County Council and Surrey Chambers of Commerce, looking to support, I think, some of the thinking that they were doing about the green economy, and specifically to support the evidence base for the Surrey and North Mid Hampshire LSIP, which I'll just describe as the LSIP area from now on. We looked to use Lightcast data, Data City data, as well as our own analysis to get a picture of the number of green jobs in that geography, the LSIP area, across some different occupations, utilising the Lightcast taxonomy, to look at the overall green economy, so looking at jobs in specific green sectors using the Data City, looking at skills provision linked to the green jobs in that area, and where there's what kind of FE and apprenticeship and higher education provision there is, and looking at projecting that out into the future. So based on a policy-driven growth trajectory, what does that all look like in the future? And as I say, that brought together our own analysis, Lightcast and Data City. Will, if you could go to the next slide, please. So in terms of the initial results, our main analytical approach, which again was using Lightcast job postings data and their green jobs taxonomy, found that there are about 35,000 green jobs in the LSIP area currently. That's about 3.8% of all total employees were in a green occupation, which I'll talk about a little bit more in a second what we mean by that. You can see from this little map at the side that varies depending on where you are in that area, that there's some variation in terms of how prominent green jobs are in that local authority. And also the overall green employment is about 23% higher in that area than it is in the UK as a whole. So Surrey and North Hampshire is a relative strength when it comes to green jobs. It's what that analysis found. Next slide, Will. So what do we actually mean by that? Sorry, I thought I'd change the colours of this, but the top row there says it says rank, occupation, and then a number of green jobs in that table, in case you can't read that. So there's a broad range of occupations making a significant contribution to the LSIP area, and there's a mix of ways in which they do that. So you've got some occupations, such as environment professionals, that are very much entirely green jobs. So everyone within that occupation is doing a green job, and therefore they're making a big part of that overall total of green jobs in the area. But also you see in much bigger occupations and much bigger essentially SOC codes, such as sales accounts and business development managers, that it's a very, very big overall occupation, and there's within that a number of occupations where they have which are green roles according to the Lightcast taxonomy. So those are making a big contribution as well. Then you've got some that are sort of somewhere in between. So production managers and directors of manufacturing is sort of medium-sized occupation, and there's a decent number of green roles within that. So there's a sort of mix of things making up that overall picture of the green occupations. Thanks. Next slide, Will. Okay, this table looks fine. Pleased with that. So the Data City analysis. We worked with Data City a while ago on a project looking at green economy in London, and with them we defined a number of, I think we ended up with 8 policy areas. So what we did was we looked at 8 particular missions that needed to be delivered to meet our climate targets and to meet our other environmental goals. And then we developed a taxonomy and mapped companies to these sectors and looked at the economic imprint of those companies. So you can see here in this table that includes things like power. So clearly decarbonising the power sector is a really important part of delivering a green economy and delivering net zero. Homes and buildings, the retrofit agenda, low carbon heating agenda, as well as some other kind of smaller sectors, so industrial decarbonisation. So, obviously having a more circular economy approach to how we do industry, and also switching to things like electric arc furnaces and hydrogen in terms of how we do industry. So what we did was we used this taxonomy to look at what the current number of jobs was in each of these policy areas in the LSIP area, and compare that to the southeast as a whole. So what we can see here is in the reduce, reuse, recycle and repair and power sectors, sort of a very large number of jobs, broadly similar to the southeast. Slight overrepresentation in the power sector there, so slightly stronger power sector. But really was found in the sort of climate adaptation space, so very much built around things like flood risk management and the homes and buildings, so that retrofit sector, there was an overrepresentation in the LSIP area as opposed to the southeast. So some indication there that what you've got is a bit of an emerging specialism in those areas, which we thought was very interesting. Thanks, Will. Next one. And then based on the first set of numbers that I talked about, so the Lightcast numbers, what we then did was we, based on some work that's been commissioned by the CCC and some other piece of work, we used that to build out some projections of green jobs in the area into the future. So it should be said that when we build these projections, it's what we call, it's based on basically the policy being in place to support net zero. So it's not about just looking at the current growth trend, it's about projecting that out based on policy being in place. Clearly, based on what the CCC and others have said, we're not on that trajectory at the moment, but we do need to plan for that trajectory because it's what we want to be on if we're going to meet our climate targets. So what that found is the number of green jobs in the LSIP area rises from about 35,000 today to about 57,000 in 2030, and then 108,000 in 2050, where we should be hitting net zero if we're on target. So that's very, and we constructed, obviously there's considerable uncertainty when you're projecting that far into the future and when you're projecting an increase of that size. So there's a low, central and high scenario there, which you can see in the chart. The overall rate of growth that we're projecting is about 6% per year under the central scenario. That's a very, very high rate of growth. That's a higher rate of growth than you've actually seen in the digital sector in the sort of height of the tech boom. So it's a very, very, very high rate of growth, which I think lays bare the challenge for all stakeholders, local authorities, skills providers, others in preparing for that future by making sure you have those requisite skills. Which brings us nicely onto the last slide, Will, which looks at educational achievements. There we go. So if you look at so there's a longer list of occupations that were tracked to the green economy, which you can see in the full report. Much too big for a slide, but you can see it in the full report. So what we did with Lightcast's help was match that to basically current match occupations to current educational FE and apprenticeship achievements in that LSIP area. And then what I found was quite interesting. So there's a range of subjects prevalent in the FE completions. A lot of that actually does include a lot of kind of quite white collar subjects, so things like business management and accounting and finance, which I think helps to kind of, I guess, slightly break the stereotype of what green roles are. We're not just talking about a few sectors here and there. There's white collar jobs across the whole economy that are going to be helping build part of that overarching green economy. For apprenticeship completions, a lot of achievements related to the skilled craft occupations, so particularly skilled trades, electricians, carpenters, people like that. And that's probably, I think, to an extent what people would expect there to be a lot of green roles in. And that's a big future area of concern, not just because we're going to need a lot of those types of roles for delivering the green economy, but also because there's just a broad shortage of those types of roles as well. So meeting that need is quite key. One of the priority areas identified by this analysis was the need for a higher uptake of engineering FE and apprenticeships in the LSIP area. So if you look at the top 20 green occupations in 2050, about 5 of those are projected to be roles in engineering. So there's going to need to be a really big number of engineers in the future. There's a need to increase educational provision to be able to meet that need. So that's a bit of a canter through. Would encourage you to have a look at the report. But yeah, this is a good example of where I think we've brought together Lightcast and Data City data with our own analysis to just sort of paint an important picture about the green economy in an area.
Thanks so much, Joe. Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a really good example. Where can people see the report?
It is on our website, but I'm happy to circulate it afterwards as well. Yeah.
Yeah, I can always put that on the email to people. I'm really mindful of time. We do have a few questions. I just want to get through those. Couple of key ones that came through. Is the additional data, notably jobs and skills, via Lightcast integrated into the standard Lightcast licensed Data City offer or an add-on? It is an add-on. Just to be absolutely clear, it's an add-on that can be that can be switched on alongside your existing subscription. I've had a request to reduce the number of acronyms that we use, or just to explain them all. That might be pertinent to both myself and Alex, whereas I think, Joe, that's less your point. Good note. And then there's a question here, Alex, which you might be able to help with. Is there a CRM feed hookup for the Data City platform?
There's one in the offing.
Yes.
So there is a Hunter.io integration, and we've started looking at CRM integrations. Which CRM would be my question, because there's a lot of them. So,
well, if you want to come back and you can pick up that conversation directly, it might be interesting to get that insight from the individual that asked the question. Just going to do a quick summary, a very quick summary. I'm mindful of time. What have we focused in on today? That using the Data City and Lightcast insight alongside other offers, such as the work that WPI Economics do, can really help to provide the ability to analyse the labour market from the ground up rather than top down. So often using traditional structural data, it was a top-down approach, whereas once you start to bring in big data as used in job postings or the real-time industry classifications that Data City have, you can build from the ground up, from the local level up. And I think that's really valuable in terms of local economic plans and strategies. We've talked about this a few times, this understanding of the comparative strengths and advantages present in your local economy. Alex was showing you that comparison to the UK average. That can also be done with the Lightcast data. And you saw it as well in the presentation that Joe did about understanding where there were comparative strengths within the green economy in Hampshire and Surrey. And then obviously that ability to quantify emerging industries and emerging sectors and emerging economies. And some of those are not present within the structural data, which is where I think the real-time industry classification alongside job postings provides a real strength for understanding those elements of the emerging economies. And essentially, what are we trying to do? Provide a dynamic reflection of the labour market as it is, rather than what we assume it may be. And again, I think that comes back to this need for big data, because it is dynamic and it is you haven't got that kind of lag that you will have when you're looking at structural data, and I believe that's where the value is of the combined offer. You can get in touch with, oh wow, the formatting on that has really gone crazy, but I think the key things there is you've got two email addresses, one for myself and one for Alex. Do come through to us. Apologies, the formatting going from one platform to another can sometimes be a bit off. And finally, just wanted to mention the webinar that we've got tomorrow. Not too late to register for it. That's looking particularly at the digital skills outlook for 2024. And I mentioned sneakily added some of that to some of the earlier slides, looking at the Leeds example. You can also request a report for 5 key cities within the UK and 5 cities within other global locations. So just wanted to thank Alex and Joe for their time and what they shared with us today. And thank you all for attending. Recording and slides will be shared with all attendees and everyone who registered. Thank you. Have a great day. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks. Cheers. Bye.
Cheers. Bye.